welcome back to Dr. Noah's YouTube update, and we're doing a series. We left off last week with genetic modified foods in California here in November. One of the ways that we deal with the gutless politicians here that don't pass laws is that we have to, put propositions on the ballot so people can then make decisions. And one of them is Proposition 37, which is a GMO labeling law. And we discussed, it's not a perfect law. There's definitely, exceptions and special interests like that. But overall, as we'll talk about, it's definitely the right way to kind of go. So this week, I was going to go over some of the the crazy kind of assertions or assumptions that the Monsanto and the biotech industry makes. I mean, it's a very idealistic type of world that doesn't really kind of exist. So as we talked about, what they do is they take genes and they move them around. And we talked about the classic tomato where they took genes from a fish and put it into tomatoes so they, when it got cold or frosty, the tomato cells wouldn't break down and then make the product unusable. So one of the assertions is inserting genes will produce a single protein. So, and not to get too technical here, is that proteins kind of are like communicators and they kind of direct certain type of things that are going to happen in the body. Unfortunately, in reality, and that's their assumption. So when they do these type of genetic engineering, they're assuming that they're going to correct one, or they're going to modify one gene, and everything's going to come out just the way they want it. Foreign genes, which can create multiple proteins and then unpredictable consequences, and that's the difficulty. This is one big experiment that is, it already looks like it's going bad, but it can go really bad here. And a professor of biology of natural systems at Queens College is quoted as saying, "The fact that one gene can give rise to multiple proteins destroys the theoretical foundation of a multi-billion-dollar industry," which is the biotech or Monsanto, the genetic engineering of foods. I mean, yeah, it's nice on paper, but in reality it doesn't happen. And we talk a lot about this with the pharmaceutical industry. Their intentions may be good, trying to help a particular type of order. I really question that. It's usually about lots of money. And then, of course, 4 or 5 years down the road, they find out, oh, well, it's killed more people than it helped. And that's what we're kind of showing here, is that genetic foods have been in kind of the general type of environment for about 10 years, and now we're starting to see, super strains or super bugs that aren't, once again, being killed by pesticides, just like in the medical profession, antibiotics that now don't work because of the misuse. Now we're getting super weeds out there that, are making it difficult, and they have to do more type of problems. Another assertion is the proteins created by insertive genes will act exactly the same way in a new organism. That's where we had some difficulty before. I mean, genetic engineering has been going on since since the beginning of husbandry and plants and stuff, where you take some type of trait. I mean, I was just thinking about dogs. I mean, all the variety of dogs, from tiny little dogs to big dogs, pretty much come from wolves. And so people have, once again, bred wolves, and then over time made them into a little chihuahua. Well, there's a big difference there. That's happened. But we've gone way beyond that. We talked about the example, tomato and a fish gene. That's never going to happen. You can try to mate them, reproduce them. It's never going to happen. And that's where we get into this problem is, once again, the proteins created by inserting in genes will act exactly the same way in a new organism. So by putting a fish gene in a tomato plant, that, once again, no one knows what's going to happen out there. So foreign proteins may be folded improperly. This is a big structure equals function. And this has to do with what's called mad cow syndrome. Mad cow syndrome is not even a virus. A virus is actually a kind of almost lifeless type of substance that causes all kinds of diseases, from AIDS to colds like this. This is actually a folding or changing of the structure of a protein that causes your brain to turn into Swiss cheese. And that's what they're talking about. When you do gene expression, you don't know what kind of protein is going to come out or how it's going to fold. So another professor at Auckland University warns, an incorrect folded form on an ordinary cellular protein can, under certain circumstances, duplicate itself, give rise to infectious neurological diseases. Professor David Schubert from the Salk Institute of Biology says the effect that a particular protein has a plant or an animal can be modified by the additional molecules such as phosphates, sulfates, sugars, and lipids. So by taking this gene and then putting it into this soup of other type of compounds, what life is, who knows what's going to happen. So that's where we get into problem. Once again, maybe their intentions are good. The scientists there, once again, in a very limited type of research, shows that by doing this kind of consequences, when we get into the real world, it's a far cry from what's happening. Foreign genes will not transfer to bacteria in the digestive system. Use of antibiotic genes are therefore safe. One of the systems that they use to, once again, once they put this genetic modification occur, is they use different types of other genes that are antibiotic. And we've already talked about the fiasco that the medical profession has created, using, once again, let's see, ear infections, give antibiotics, don't work. Viruses, they don't work. We just go down the road like that. But, once again, that they're just ripping people off. They know it doesn't work, but it continues. And now, not only is it just a ripoff, those bugs, once again, they're trying to survive. They're trying to have their lineage continue like that, have become resistant. And now that's what the big scare is. You have all these different antibacterial resistant bugs out there like MRSA. And nothing now works, and most of it, was in the hospital. Now it's going to spread into different other type of areas, and so now we're getting back to a pre-diabetic, pre-antibiotic type of condition like that. Now, fortunately, in natural medicine, we say, well, that's fine, but we still have good old things like garlic. There's a garlic from England that I use that actually, before they ship it out, they actually kill MRSA to make sure that it's the kind of garlic they want. So that's how powerful natural things is. Of course, you're not going to see anything about it, because the garlic costs about $40-50 versus the highest cost. I actually had a patient about 4 months ago, had the highest generation antibiotics, one dose over $1,100. Yeah. So that's why they're never going to hear about, hear a whole bottle of garlic that, once again, not only kills bacteria, it kills viruses, fungus, yeast infection, lowers your cholesterol, thins your blood out. God forbid, the pharmaceutical industry allow anything like that out there in the mass production or mass use like that, because they'd be out of business by now. So that's the scary thing. So that's the problem in terms of, once again, screwing up these genes that jump into the human gut bacteria. The bacteria then create GMO type of products, and those metabolites cause some problems here. As a quote, British scientific researchers have demonstrated for the first time that genetically modified DNA material from crops is finding its way into the human gut bacteria. So now you're creating your own, because you have this kind of symbiotic type of situation. You actually have more bacteria in terms of number than all the cells of your body, 60, 70 trillion bacteria like that. And those, once again, when you have this proper balance of good bacteria versus bad bacteria, you're healthy. When bad bacteria increases, you get sick. Now we're creating, once again, Frankenstein bacteria in your gut, and no one knows where that's going to go. So these genes may be inserted the wrong way around in multiple copies, may be scattered throughout the plant's genome. They can be inserted into other genes. So once again, you can have these toxins, once again, created in your body and create genetically monster Frankenstein type of bugs like that. Dr. Lupkin, director of the FDA's Division of Anti-Infective Drug Products, warned it would be a serious health hazard to introduce a gene that codes for antibiotic resistance into the normal flora of the general population. Duh. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So that's, once again, these are the assertions that they go and say, yeah, it's perfectly safe because one gene is going to cause one protein to occur. It's not going to be cross-contaminated. I was watching, one of the big things is, the GMO corn or whatever that stays in the area. Well, they found actually it can migrate to 1,000 miles away. So once again, nice thought. I mean, it's great to have scientists, but in the ivory tower, that's different in the real world. So that's an issue as health providers. It's nice that researchers doing this research, but when's the last time you really helped a patient? Zero, none. Promoter, let's see. Nutritional properties are unaffected by genetic modification. Another little story tell. Significant differences in nutritional content between GMO products and their natural counterparts have been observed. Quote, Roundup Ready beans were significantly lower in protein and the amino acid phenylalanine. More disturbing were increased levels of allergen tryptophan inhibitors in Roundup Ready meal. So that's the problem here, is that when you start creating these things, you create new type of proteins the body's never seen, and gee, maybe that's one of the reasons that autoimmune diseases are increased, more allergies occur. Now, from the medical point of view, that's great. Hey, more sick people, we can rip them off, use all this garbage, so that's something else like that that's going on here. So that's the particular type of problems is that we're seeing, and Cindy was talking about, farmers, are coming down with all kinds of skin lesions, autoimmune diseases, allergies, because these new proteins have never been seen before, so the body freaks out, produces an overreaction of the immune system, and develops a kind of an autoimmune response there. There is no risk from breathing pollen from genetically modified crops. That's the assertion. In reality, evidence suggests that residents living adjacent to the edge of Bt corn in the Philippines have developed a disease from the actual corn like that. So once again, nice assumptions, but let's talk about reality here. The chances of GM crops being allergenic are minimal. In fact, the study showed that skyrocketed over 50%. So that's a good problem like that. Some other type of what's we're dealing with here is that these things that happen with our food come into not only into the environment but come into our body like that. So specifically, Association of Genetic Modified Foods have been supported with animal studies showing significant immune dysregulation, including upregulation of cytokines. Cytokines are inflammatory compounds. We've talked about on my TV show and like that. There's a great article back about 10 years ago, even in Time magazine. Inflammation is a causative factor for little things like cancer, heart attack, strokes, diabetes, osteoporosis, you name it. These are bad things. You need to reduce it. Taking anti-inflammatories, we talked about that. That kills more people than AIDS does, but we don't want to confuse people. Let's keep pretending like that. So those are the problems that are happening. Then there's been animal studies showing, once again, problems with what? Kidney, pancreas, spleen has been documented. Proliferation of cell growth, another fancy term for cancer. Disruption in intestinal immune system, we already talked about that. So that's what's happening. A little organization called the Union of Concerned Scientists reviewed 12 academic studies and indicated that several thousand field trials over the last 20 years for genes aimed at increasing operational intrinsic yields indicate significant undertaking. Yet none of these field trials resulted in increased yield, because that's the big thing. Oh, just like, drugs. Oh, drugs are the best thing, and without that, people would be dying in the street. Not so, but nice story. Same thing. If you don't, once again, if you vote down genetic modified food, people are beginning starving around the world. Well, there's hundreds of studies showing it's not production, it's distribution of food. So let's get that BS off the even the plate here. So Monsanto pretending that that once again they're just so humane. It's not that we're making billions of dollars and the CEO is making tens of millions of dollars a year doing nothing. It's because of the goodness of people. We don't want them starving. It has nothing to do with that. It's distribution, has to do with politics, corrupt type of factors like that. So that's it. But the other thing is, and Cindy was saying, part of the ads like that, for the poor farmers, they're going to get less yields. Not so. There's no science to support that. Just because you think it might have increased yields, it doesn't happen in reality. So that's been disputed, once again, by a little organization called the Union of Concerned Scientists. So anyway, so that's what's kind of disturbing here. Well, a bomb kind of exploded about a month or so ago. So the first ever lifetime feeding study finds genetically engineered corn causes massive tumors, organ damage, and early death. And this was published in a peer-reviewed medical journal called Food and Chemical Toxicology. I could talk. And and so that's, once again, just blew everybody around, because this is we talked a little bit last time. This is the dirty little secret. So they know cancer, heart disease, osteoporosis, that takes a long time. And so what they do is they play a little game. Now, they use mice because, with human beings it takes a lot longer. So they know that for a tumor to occur in a mouse, it might take 90, 120 days or a year. So they do the experiment for 6 weeks. So they never get to the threshold where they're actually going to see these things. I know it's a dirty little secret, but hey, I got my $20 million from Monsanto, do my study, published it, makes me look like I'm a real, once again, whore, which you are, in my opinion. And then that's how it goes. You go away in your locked community like that and pretend that you're a real scientist. But once again, you're just an infomercial person like that. So according to the authors of this peer-reviewed science, I think that the health effects of Roundup-tolerant genetically modified maize, which is a fancy name for corn, and the diet was only 11%. And as we'll go on like that, most people are probably eating way more than 10% or 11% in their diet of Roundup or Roundup alone in their water, and were studied for 2 years in rats. So once again, now we're really starting to see what long-term consequences, not the 60, 90 days BS that was done before. In females, all treated groups died 200 to 300% more. Oh, death? Oh, my goodness. You should be concerned about that. Then controls. Controls don't have that more rapidly. The difference was visible in once again in terms of those groups like that. All results were hormone and sex dependent. We've talked about xenoestrogen, endocrine disruptors. That's in like BHP. Other things are out there, but definitely these type of products that we're getting in genetic modified food. So let's not forget our little male friends, because that was the women, and we'll talk about the amount of cancer, breast cancer they had, and in treated males, liver congestion and necrosis, which means that destruction, was 250 to 550% more like that. Marked in severe kidney death like that was between up to 230% more. And males presented 400% more large palatable tumors than controls, and that occurred up to 600 days earlier. Significant kidney damage, we call like that. So that becomes a real concern in terms of what's happening, in terms of what's occurring in our food source. You don't have to eat 100% in genetic modified. In this study, it was just 11%. So that's what's disturbing. And now we got some long-term studies that's showing, hey, this stuff isn't kind of good. Genetically modified food connected to breast cancer. Well, in this study here, in female animals, 93% of the tumors were found once again, in the mammary glands. So why is cancer? We just talked about a study that was done in Hispanics. Now cancer has surpassed cardiovascular disease. Within 2 or 3 years, every ethnic group, once again, cancer, it's been an explosion. And we've talked about the different type of reasons why that is. Of course, most of it has to do with environmental and epigenetics. But, don't confuse me, because I need to walk and run and for breast cancer and try to find some magical drug that, it's just a breakthrough. I've been hearing that since 1972. Remember the war on cancer? Well, the war has been lost, just like in Afghanistan and other type of infractions like that. So don't confuse me with the facts. Let's see, health 10-year there was an earlier study done in Norway, 10-year. They showed the same type of thing in terms of increase of obesity. People on genetically modified food. And that's why, that's what's so funny is, you'll hear, I don't watch TV, but I listen to the radio, is the No on 37 is sponsored by little babies and little kids and little chickens and little kittens and little doggies, and we all love that. And then you go, also by Monsanto, Dow Chemical, and 40 other big multinational corporations that are paying for all this stuff. So that other kind of BS stuff is, once again, just kind of a joke. Once again, it's all done by the companies that, once again, you eat more of their food, they make more of their money. I mean, this is, once again, and Cindy was talking about earlier, there's been concerted effort not only in tobacco to make tobacco more addictive, but also with food. So people eat more of it. I mean, it's economics in terms like that. Okay, I have one product here, I make $1. If I make them eat 5, I make $5. I mean, it's another way to make more money. Doesn't mean that any goodness is coming out of it. You're just having empty calories. It makes you obese, and then you get sick, and then you have more type of problems. We already talked about the resistance problem. So here's the actual study, and we'll get a little, and then that'll be it for next week. We'll talk about some more. So here's the study. Once again, peer review, medical journal. Once again, this is the highest form of this little insignia right here. That shows you the highest type of science, not the kind of science that you see in drug companies and Monsanto. They don't have that there because it's not really, it's an info commercial. So it says long-term toxicity of Roundup herbicide and Roundup tolerant genetically modified maize. So let's get to the pretty pictures here, because pictures are worth 1,000, 10,000, a billion words. Because that really will tell you what's happening here. So we'll show you some nice things. So we have some liver changes. So we'll kind of go like that. And the big ones are these right here. If you can see that. You see those big bumps there? Yeah, those are nice big tumors. So how would you like to feed that to your kids and to yourself and like that, and have that? Then we have some genetically modified, pituitary, and so kidney and liver we talked about. So this is reality here. Now, once again, not with the multinationals and the people I know, the professor from Stanford that we busted, that gets paid from Monsanto and from oh, he used to get money from the tobacco industry, and now telling and swearing in front of Congress that, smoking doesn't cause lung cancer. I mean, why that guy is there? I mean, that guy shouldn't even be able to allow us to sell used cars. But, maybe a greeter at Walmart. We'll give him that. If all he has to do is say hi and doesn't give any information, where can I find, apples? Oh, that's aisle 17. No, all he could do is just say, hi, welcome to Walmart. Then maybe I'll let him have a job. But other than that, he's worthless. He's a piece of scum, in my opinion, like that. So that's what we're up against. That's what you have to be concerned about. And it's kind of a sad statement about Stanford. But we now know, it's all about money. Follow the money. And Stanford and the scientists will tell you almost anything you want to say, because that's how it works nowadays. So anyway, with that happy note, we'll see you next week, and we'll continue with Proposition 37 and genetic modified organisms.